1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime, and women with dense breast tissue are at a higher risk. That is why the Food and Drug Administration is proposing a rule that would require doctors to inform women about how density could impact mammogram results. And here to talk us through this issue is Dr. Trudy Parker, a radiologist with Allina Health. Thank you so much for being here. As the daughter of a breast cancer survivor, I know how paramount and pressing this particular issue is. So tell us, it's been a long time since they've changed the standards. What led to the need for this change?
I think that, nowadays healthcare, it's really important that women are informed about their breast density, and so I think it's a very good move on the FDA's part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And is there any specific relationship or correlation that would explain why the density would more likely contribute to breast cancer? Is there a scientific understanding or basis for it?
So at this point, we don't completely understand why having dense breasts increases the risk for breast cancer. It's likely very multifactorial, and we learn as we go. But right now, if a woman has dense breasts, they are at slightly increased risk for developing breast cancer. The other important part is that if you have dense breast tissue, it makes it more difficult for us to detect breast cancer. The mammogram may be less sensitive or less accurate. And the reason why is because a cancer shows up as a white spot on a mammogram. If you have dense breast tissue, you have more white as a background. So a great analogy I heard the other day, it's like trying to find a snowball in a snowstorm. And so the mammogram can be less accurate and less sensitive in someone with dense breast tissue.
So if a doctor tells you, or if you self-diagnosed, I have a denser breast,
yes,
you need to be on top of this, because we always know early detection is the key. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Having dense breast, it is common. Over 50% of women over age 40 have dense breast tissue. However, knowing that, I would still recommend women get screening mammograms yearly, starting at age 40, be informed about their breast density, and have a discussion with their doctor.
I think that's so valuable. Yeah. Dr. Parker, thank you so much for sharing this new information,
Absolutely,
alerting everyone out there about what they need to do. Really appreciate your time here.
Thank you.
You can find more information about this topic at KARE11.com under the 4 p.m. show page. And up next, the storm is finally moving out. Laura tells us when it should start melting and the day we could see the sun. That thing again.